Her perseverance is something that inspires me because sometimes, as much as people may or may not realize, living the faith is sometimes difficult. I mean, tremendous faith. What is up, familia? Today we will talk saintly. Well, not like me talking in Latin or speaking in tongues or stuff like that. I'm talking about saints, holy people, those people who lived before our time and whom have left an indelible mark on the church and the faithful. Now, that is not to say there are no living saints. Of course, there are a ton of living saints, but the church verifies the life of said person after their earthly life. So, yeah, that should not discourage you though to live holy, saintly lives, because God knows we need more positive role models out there. So with that in mind, I will bring you a list of the saints who have inspired me so far and have helped me grow in the faith. This will be broken up into 3 parts, so stay tuned for who is the most influential saint in my life in the 3rd video. It's time for that quick reminder though. Happy blessed Easter, everybody. Make sure you check out the CDC and WHO websites for more information from the experts regarding COVID-19 to stay informed and stay safe. More inspiration from the Bible? Here it is. With all prayer and supplication, pray at every opportunity in the Spirit. To that end, be watchful with all perseverance and supplication for all the holy ones. This verse is from Ephesians chapter 6, verse 18. Saint Therese of Lisieux is one of the saints that has influenced certain aspects of my faith. But first, she was born on January 2nd, 1873 in, let me see if I can say this correctly, Alonso, France. I think I said that right. She is the patron saint of missionaries, people who suffer from HIV and AIDS, florists, gardeners, and loss of parents, and there are other patronages, but these are just some. She obviously lived a heroic saintly life. She is recognized as the Little Flower. She wrote letters, some journals, and really the only book she really authored was an autobiography which was titled The Story of a Soul. Obviously, this book is on a list to read. What really stood out to me about her life was that she kind of changed the idea for me about what a saint looked like. We normally think of saints doing these tremendous heroic things, and they do, but through her we also see that ordinary people like you and me can lead saintly, holy lives without needing to do heroic acts of virtue. Although, if you think about it, living a holy life in today's world is very heroic and very virtuous. I mean, yeah. Saint Juan Diego is one of the more recent saints because he was canonized not too long ago, if we're talking in centuries, but his life goes back years and years ago. See, this man here is an inspirational figure. He was born in 1474 in modern-day Mexico. He is the patron saint of indigenous people. Now, Saint Juan Diego did not author a book, but this saint has been one of my early inspirations in the faith. You see, every year when we celebrate the feast day of the Virgin of Guadalupe, we always hold this day in special regard for her. But I always found his story intriguing because his humility and his gracious attitude was such that the lady appeared to him. And thus today we have the chance and the opportunity to celebrate her on her feast day. Humility is something I think we all need a little bit, and yeah, you can start with me. Saint Dominic Savio is definitely one of the saints on whom I have been recently learning more and more about. And even though I do not know everything about his life, I know more than I did years ago. He was born on April 2nd, 1842 in San Giovanni in present-day Italy. He is the patron saint of the falsely accused people, juvenile delinquents, and choir boys. I recently stumbled upon his life after a retreat that I helped out years ago, and I saw his picture and I studied up a bit on him because that's normally something I do. You see, some of the things he did were so simple, but yet they were so powerful. Let me explain. He encouraged others to pray. Sometimes would kneel outside the church if it was closed, but if it was open, he would definitely go inside. He was an altar server, and this one kind of took me back. He wanted to attend confession regularly. At 7 years old, he was already asking to receive the sacrament of the Eucharist because his faith was so mature. I mean, 7 years old? That's 7 years old. And then we get to his 4 promises, which in the quickest way of me explaining were the following: confession as often as possible and frequently receive the Eucharist, sanctify the Sundays and festivals or celebrations, my friends shall be Jesus and Mary. And this last one is, wow, death rather than sin. Don Bosco wrote an autobiography on Saint Dominic Savio because he was so touched by his example of faith. And needless to say, he is an inspiration for me. Saint Teresa of Calcutta, or better known as Mother Teresa, is one of the more recently canonized saints whom lived while I was a youngster. And this is a true story. She definitely left a mark on the life of the church. She was born on August 26, 1910 in modern-day North Macedonia. Her patronages is World Youth Day and the Missionaries of Charity, which she founded. She wanted to help the poorest of the poor and the maligned by society. The one thing that stood out of her life was that she went through some moments of doubt in her faith during her life. Now, obviously, she did not lose the faith, but there is something to be said about the perseverance she showed throughout her entire life, working for others and helping them in the name of Christ. Her perseverance is something that inspires me because sometimes, as much as people may or may not realize, living the faith is sometimes difficult. I mean, tremendous faith. Saint Jerome is a saint that brings us back a bit closer to the beginning of the church. He was born in 347 in what is today modern day Croatia. He is the patron saint of archaeologists, Bible scholars, librarians, and translators, among other things. Again, this is one of those saints who I did not know much about because there are so many saints in the church, thank God. But his life is an example that inspired me. When he was younger, he basically lived a crazy life. Now, the interesting part of the story is that even though he knew what he was doing was wrong, he would actually go and visit the catacombs to get scared and help him correct his ways. Talk about scary movies before scary movies were made. I mean, like, man. Well, it worked because he straightened his life. He chose the monastic life, but he was a person who traveled a lot. Saint Jerome was considered smart and very good at translating, and this is a very important point. On a visit to Rome, Pope Damasus actually asked him to stay as a secretary and to start working on translating the Bible to Latin. No Google Translate. So you know how difficult that must have been. But through his intense work and faith, he eventually translated the entire Bible to Latin. This is the Vulgate, which is actually considered the standard Latin translation of the scripture. 1600 years later. Bro, that's a long time. That's a long time. And then he topped it off, at least for me, with one of his most famous quotes, which is, "Ignorance of scripture is ignorance of Christ." I mean, that right there helped me understand that through the scriptures, we will start learning about Christ himself. And so it inspired me to continue reading and reading more and more of the Bible. Now, there is a lot more on these saints than what I described here. So take some time and do some research on their lives. We will continue with this list next week, so stay tuned for that. Question of the week: which saint has impacted your life in a profound way? Let me know in the comment sections down below. Also, check out Kyrie Films and Spirit Juice on their YouTube channels for the live stream of masses. And if you know of any other YouTube channels that will be showing the mass, please put them down in the comment sections down below. Today, I bring you not one, but 2 spots to go check out. The first one is Holy Armament, and the second is Stay Close to Christ. Check out the catalogs and go support both. The links for their websites and pages are down below in the description, somewhere there. I really pray you all took something away from this video, and if so, hit that like button down below and consider subscribing to the channel, and also hit the bell icon to get all the notifications from the channel. Stay safe, wash your hands, pray, stay tuned for next week's video, and blessed Easter, everybody. We're still in Easter season. We're still in Easter. Felices Pascuas. Stay blessed. God blessed. And with that, we're You want to know why I was inspired recently by doing this topic? You want to know why? This book right here. This book right here. Months ago, that's what it meant. It's like months ago when I got the book. And so now that I'm here, I've been reading it. Very difficult read, I will say that. Very difficult read, so you need to know what you're talking about when you're reading this book. But it's definitely worth the read. And if you don't, you can't see it there. It's that, I don't know, maybe it might be backwards, I don't know. But that book right there, Confessions of St. Augustine. Yep. So the other day, I kind of noticed that there weren't as many ambulances rushing back and forth. And so that had been going on for several days. Now, over the past few last days, there's like, you kind of notice it because there's more and more ambulances rushing back and forth to the I'm assuming to the hospital, obviously. And I kind of noticed an uptick in that. So we're still not out of the woods out of this yet. So, well, everybody just continue to be safe. I know that there's regulations and all that stuff, but really make sure you continue to protect your loved ones and continue to protect yourself, because this is it's very, very, it can be very unnerving if, you know, we're still not prepared. We kind of let our guard down, and then it could get even worse. So just stay safe. Seriously, stay safe.